As a real estate professional, one of your tasks will be to help a home seller arrive at a listing price. Keep in mind, the listing price and the appraised value of a home are not the same thing. A listing price is merely a price point you believe will give the seller the best option for selling their home quickly at the maximum price. To arrive at this price, you will be responsible for creating a comparative market analysis, or CMA. Generally, you will want to review homes that have sold in the last 6 months, those that have similar square footage, and have similar characteristics, including number of bedrooms and bathrooms. The more similar the properties, the fewer adjustments will have to be made. Let's look at a home being listed for sale, the comparable sales, and review the adjustments we made and why they were made. The subject property is a 10-year-old traditional ranch home. The property has a 2-car garage, central heat, and sits on a 120-foot by 150-foot lot with 1,980 square feet of living space. To get an estimated listing price, we found 3 other properties that sold within the last 6 months, which were also traditional ranches. While none were identical, there were enough similarities to use them for comparison purposes. Before we jump into the comparable properties and the adjustments made for each component, let's take a minute to discuss how the adjustments are made relative to the subject property. When you are doing a comparative market analysis, you ultimately use the sales prices of the comparable properties as your benchmark. The value of the subject property will be determined relative to the sales price of the comparable properties. For that reason, you have to compare the components of the comparable properties to those of the subject property, and then adjust the value of each component either upwards, downwards, or equal. If one component of the subject property is superior relative to the comparable property, then a positive adjustment is used for the comparable property, and vice versa. If the components are considered equal or the same, then the value will not need to be adjusted. For example, if the subject property is identical to the comparable property in every aspect, except the subject property has 1 more bedroom, the subject property will theoretically be worth more money. Therefore, if the comparable property sold for $200,000, then the subject property should sell at a price higher than $200,000. In a comparative market analysis, the only adjustment made will be a positive adjustment to the bedroom component of the comparable property. This will give the subject property a value greater than $200,000. So just remember, if the subject property is superior in one component relative to the comparable property, a positive adjustment should be made. If the comparable property is superior, a negative adjustment should be made. That being said, let's look at how the subject property compares to each of the comparable properties, starting with comp number 1. This will show you how the concept of adjustments is used to determine the value of the subject property. Comparable number 1 is located at 901 Ryan Avenue. It was listed for $239,000, but ultimately sold for $225,000 after being on the market for 38 days. The property was sold only 6 weeks prior. The subject property has a lot size of 18,000 square feet. However, the comparable property has a lot size of 20,000 square feet. Since the comparable property is larger, the lot is considered more valuable, and therefore a negative adjustment of $1,000 is made. Keep in mind, the adjustment values are based on market data and the experience of the broker. Ultimately, all adjustments are only assumptions made by the broker and are not necessarily perfect. Next, we compare the styles of the homes. Both properties are ranch-style homes, so no adjustment is needed here. They are both considered equal in regards to this component. Next, we have the age of the property. Since the comparable property is 20 years older, a positive adjustment of $3,200 is used. Moving down, both properties are built of brick and in very good condition. Therefore, they are considered equal and no adjustments are needed. The two properties differ on total square footage, however. The subject property has 1,980 square feet of living space, while the comparable property has 2,000 square feet. Therefore, the larger property is more valuable. Using the calculations for price per square foot, a negative adjustment of $2,240 is made. Moving down to the number of bedrooms, the comparable property only has 3 bedrooms, while the subject property has 4. The result is a positive adjustment of $8,000. Next, we have the number of bathrooms. The subject home has 3 bathrooms, while the comparable property only has 2.5 baths. Since 3 bathrooms is more valuable, a positive adjustment of $1,500 is made. The next 3 components are all considered equal, and no adjustments are needed. Both properties have a central AC system, an attached 2-car garage, and a porch. A $1,000 positive adjustment is added to the fence component, since the comparable property does not have a fence. Both properties have a patio or deck, but do not have a pool. These 2 components are therefore considered equal, and no adjustments are needed. In regard to the fireplace, the subject property is slightly superior. A gas fireplace is considered more valuable than a wood-burning fireplace because it is more reliable and requires less maintenance. For this reason, a $500 positive adjustment is made. Finally, we have the terms of financing. In this case, the broker is assuming the future buyer will also use a conventional loan, and therefore no adjustment is needed. However, there are cases where the type of financing could affect the sales price of the property. For example, if a buyer were using all cash, the seller may be willing to drop the price a bit because the buyer will typically close more quickly. An all-cash buyer also offers the seller more certainty that they will close on the property, since they don't have to rely on approval from a lender. When you add up all the adjustments made to comparable number 1, you get a positive net adjustment of $10,960. This means the subject property is theoretically worth $10,960 more than the comparable property. Therefore, $10,960 is added to the comparable number 1 sales price of $225,000 to get an indicated value of $235,960. Next, we go through the same process for comparable property number 2. Comparable number 2 is located at 507 Magnolia Avenue. It was listed and sold for $230,000 after being on the market for 23 days. The property sold just 2 weeks prior. The lot size is 7,200 square feet larger than the subject property. For this reason, a negative adjustment of $1,500 is shown. The comparable property is 38 years older, which gives us a positive adjustment of $4,400. Due to its age, the condition is only listed as fair, which also gives us a positive adjustment of $1,000. Comparable number 2 is the largest of the 3 comparable properties at 2,079 square feet. Based on the price per square foot, a negative adjustment of $11,088 is used. Like the first comparable, comparable number 2 has 2.5 baths and does not have a fence. Therefore, the same positive adjustment of $1,500 is used to account for the 1/2 less bathroom, and another positive adjustment of $1,000 is used to account for the value of the fence. Finally, since comparable number 2 does not have a fireplace, a positive adjustment of $750 is used. The remaining components match those of the subject property, so no adjustments are needed in those cases. When we add together all the adjustments from comparable number 2, we get a negative net adjustment of $3,938. This means the comparable property is theoretically worth $3,938 more than the subject property. When we add the negative net adjustment to the sales price of $230,000, we get an indicated value of $226,062. This leads us to comparable property number 3, which is located at 906 Van Avenue. Comparable number 3 was listed for $240,000, but sold for $230,000 after being on the market for 96 days. The sale of the property took place 4 months prior. The lot size is only 10,500 square feet, which is much smaller than the subject property. The width is also much less, which is why a positive adjustment of $2,000 is used. However, comparable number 3 is only 2 years old, making it 8 years newer than the subject property. For this reason, a negative adjustment of $1,250 is used. The property is also 24 square feet larger, which warrants a negative adjustment of $2,688. Comparable number 3 only has 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, which gives us the same positive adjustments used for comparable number 1. Since the property does not have a porch, fence, or patio, 3 positive adjustments are used to account for the loss of value. Finally, the remaining components all match the subject property, which means no additional adjustments are needed. The final net adjustment for comparable number 3 is $10,562. When we add this value to the sales price of $230,000, we get an indicated value of $240,562. At this point, we have 3 indicated values that theoretically give the value of the subject property. To determine the fair market value of the subject property, we have to take one last step. Namely, we have to find the average of the 3 indicated values. In our case, the average of the 3 indicated values is $234,194.67, which is also known as a reconciled price. Based on the reconciled price, the broker determines the listing price as $234,000. This is the price you can feel confident advising your client is the appropriate target list price where the home should sell the fastest. And there you have it. This case study covers the steps a broker takes to determine the listing price for a property. You will conduct many CMAs in your career as an agent, and you will most likely go through a similar process as we have just done.